it's me. Gabbie Hanna is an artist in multiple definitions of the word. She is a painter, a writer, a musician, an illustrator, etc. But with her latest series, which she describes as an art piece in itself of self-expression, we as the audience should take a step back and ask the question, is this series actually a work of art? In one sense of the definition of art, as long as it sparks a reaction, then it's successful. But other people might say that anything can be art just because you say it is. Is this urinal on a pedestal a work of art just because the artist submitted it to a gallery and says it's art? Or is it literally just a toilet? And is any of this even up for discussion, or is there only one right answer in Gabbie's eyes? Because it seems to me like Gabbie thinks, this is my art and you cannot question it because it's mine and I say so. I'm so excited to do a deep dive into all these questions while also making connections to Gabbie's recent drama, how that relates, how I can compare this behavior to other historical and contemporary artists who cause controversy, and try to find the answers to these questions while having a respectful, open discussion with everybody in the comments. And as you can see, I am working on this cartoon caricature illustration of Gabbie Hanna while we have this discussion, and I would like to invite my fellow artists to grab a sketchbook and a beverage and make some artwork with me while we sit and chat. Please feel free to participate in the comments as you watch, since that really helps me out as a small channel. But if you are not an artist or don't feel like doodling along, I hope you enjoy sitting back and listening anyway. Also, feel free to join me on social media and share with me what you're working on, because I love seeing all the fun stuff you guys make and sharing it at the end of my videos. And one more thing, if you like stickers and coloring pages, you might like my Patreon. Everyone who is a member or becomes a member of my $3 tier in August will be getting my original Horse and Roses sticker sent to them in the mail, along with access to my archive of downloadable coloring pages, and the link to that will be in the description. Now let's get started. It's been known for the past couple of months that Gabbie Hanna has been working on and posting a quote docu-series which appears to be about calling out the people who she claims have wronged her over the years, and she's telling her side of the story. But in the description of one of her videos where she sits in a bathtub and sings a song, she says, "This series is simply a documentation of life not many people experience or see. It was also meant to be a commentary on the constant targeted harassment and exploitation of women in the media. It's meant to serve as a tool in shedding light on the very trivialized and misunderstood mental disability, ADHD. A lot of people with opinions on my series haven't watched it. They watched videos talking about me without taking the time to listen to me. It sucks, but it's life. The series is my art. It's meant to be consumed in its entirety, not in bits and pieces. It helped me find myself as a person and an artist, and pushed me to places I was too scared to go creatively. I'm very excited to share that with you." There's a lot that I would like to unpack here. Specifically, is this an artist statement? Is it a good artist statement? And this is why artist statements are so important. Secondly, I want to dive into perception. How does Gabbie want to be perceived as an artist? And is she allowed to put in place restrictions about how you're allowed to perceive her as a person or an artist? So artist statements are important to accompany any work of art that you as an artist want to be perceived and communicated to a public audience. You need to be able to clearly communicate the meaning of your art if you want others to understand it, or take the time to try to understand it from the artist's perspective. But the purpose of an artist statement is not to tell your audience there's only one right answer or only one way the art should be understood. It's simply a guideline, a backstory of the artist's intentions, a jumping off point for viewers to make their own meaning and walk away with their own takeaways and opinions. I personally think that Gabbie is an amazing artist, and I mean traditionally as a painter. Her paintings are objectively so beautiful and interesting in my opinion. And I love the idea of her paintings acting as album covers and album art for her upcoming music. But I don't fully agree with how Gabbie is handling herself as an artist. I actually don't agree at all with how she's handling herself as an artist, especially when she describes her series as her art. I see her series as it is. Videos. that she's posting, trying to tell her side of the story and clear her record before leaving YouTube so she can pursue her dreams of being a painter and a musician, especially since she expects everyone to interpret her series the way that she wants them to. If somebody puts out a project that's just a straightforward project and has no room for interpretation, then it is not art. It's just you sitting down in front of a camera and expressing your opinion and telling people why you are right and everyone else is wrong. Some can argue that Gabbie's series is a performance art, which is a real form of art, but again, Gabbie won't allow any interpretation besides I'm right and they are wrong, which I think shuts down any chance that this could be a performance art, especially since performance art is generally meant to spark many reactions. Performance artists make art to please people and anger people and confuse people, all under the same umbrella, and performance artists want to start discussions and cultivate opposing views and criticisms. That's usually the whole point of performance art. And the way Gabbie tried to backtrack and explain her series as a work of art is a silly way to explain the purpose. Slapping an artist statement on something does not make it art. I want to talk a little bit more about how Gabbie wants you to perceive her art. Only in one way. The way that she says is the right way. And if you perceive it differently, you're wrong, or you simply didn't take the time to fully understand her and her art. An artist's job is not simply just to make the art, but it's to be an artist. And to be an artist in the public eye especially, you need to allow your work to be perceived and interpreted by people. It's both about the process and about the product. As an artist who is also a public figure like Gabbie is, as an artist who monetizes her art like Gabbie does, you can't just pick and choose. Gabbie is good at making art. That's my opinion, which you're allowed to disagree with, since art is subjective, but I don't think Gabbie is good at being an artist. In a recent live stream, Gabbie opens up about being an artist and the hardships that she faced by putting her work online to be consumed by the public. In this clip I am about to show you, Gabbie explains how outsiders are misunderstanding her series and not watching it the way she wanted it to be watched.
Because the other thing too is like nobody's really watching the series the way I wanted it to be watched, which is kind of a bummer, but just something I sort of have to accept, because I definitely saw it as more of like an art piece of like self-expression, and I wanted it to be like the rawest version of it. I wanted you to see who I am. Like that was the whole point.
As Gabbie explained here, people misunderstanding her art is basically inevitable. As she says, it's a bummer and she has to accept it. Yet she goes on and still explains the meaning and expresses the intention she had going into it. Good artists can have explanations for their art. They can have a way in which they wish or hope it to be perceived. They can have a clear intention and hope that intention comes across clearly to their audience. But it doesn't have to. Intentions and artist statements are simply a suggestion for the audience's interpretation, not a requirement about how the art must be understood. I think Gabbie would really benefit from educating herself on art formally and taking an art history class, as Gabbie even explains herself here.
But like a Da Vinci painting versus a Monet are, you know what I mean? I'm saying all the really basic shit, because to be honest, I don't know a ton about art history and shit because I stopped taking art in high school.
If Gabbie was formally educated in art, it may be easier for her to make connections between her intentions and the intentions of other controversial artists, both from art history and contemporary art. Two artists that come to mind for me that are widely described as trolls of the art world are Jeff Koons and Marcel Duchamp. And although they are both artists who made a controversial mark and got a lot of people talking, not everyone thinks that they are good artists either. Earlier, I briefly mentioned somebody putting a toilet on a pedestal and calling it art. Well, Marcel Duchamp literally did just that. His most famous art piece is a urinal that he has submitted to a gallery just to anger people and art critics, and to get people asking the question, what is art? Jeff Koons, on the other hand, is a contemporary artist who likes to anger people by making art that can be described as ugly, gaudy, pointless, etc., which also sparks wider conversations about art and what makes good art. The difference is, though, these artists are trolling because they want to invoke negative reactions from the public. It makes their art have a deeper meaning. Gabbie, however, is trolling because she wants to take control of people's opinions about her. She wants people to dislike her because she's purposely doing unlikable things on the internet. She seems to either want people to like her for her true self or dislike a character of herself, someone that she invented as a shield to protect her true self. Koons and Duchamp, even though they are famous, influential, and they both made history books, that does not make them likable artists or likable people or good artists. In fact, the majority of the art world has a negative opinion on Koons especially. Just because your art is influential and profitable does not mean the art is good and does not mean that people need to like it. Another difference is Gabbie is genuinely worrying her audience and hurting real people with her trolling and with her series, while Duchamp literally just wanted to troll art critics in art galleries. Gabbie seems to use her mental health as a shield from criticism toward her art and her docuseries. In the statement mentioned earlier that she posted as a description to her video, she speaks about her journey learning about her ADHD and how it's taught her a lot about herself, which is great. What isn't great, though, is using her mental illness as an excuse not to accept criticism of her art and her work and her behavior in general. A ton of artists struggle with mental health to some degree, if not most artists. Probably the most famous example is Van Gogh, who actually painted Starry Night while he was in an asylum. The piece was apparently inspired by the view from his window at the asylum that he was staying at the time. Van Gogh, like most artists, channeled his pain into his artwork, which Gabbie does too, but the majority of the public doesn't know Starry Night was painted from an asylum. The majority of the public doesn't know Van Gogh struggled with mental illnesses like depression and anxiety that eventually took his life. His legacy lies with the beauty in his artwork and the inspiration that sparked succeeding art movements and art styles. But Gabbie has a worldwide audience at her fingertips, and people have instant access to her and her content and her artwork at all times. People are constantly exposed to her trolling and her dark poetry and her vulgar paintings and her self-deprecating jokes about her declining mental health. And this is all hurting and triggering people in real time. With everything that Gabbie posts online about her mental health, specifically the decline of it, it's not surprising that somebody recently called a wellness check on her. According to a Patreon post that has since been made public, Gabbie thought the whole situation was comical and explained to the police that trolls called the wellness check because she's an artist who posts dark artwork online. Gabbie's art isn't influencing other artists. It's not starting healthy discussions about mental health. It's making people worry about her, and it's making people get hurt. It can be dangerous to channel all your negative energy into artwork. Being an artist, especially an artist without a community and without other artist friends, can be very isolating. Gabbie even says that here.
I think like anyone who does like any form of art knows exactly what I'm talking about. When the thing just kind of like comes together where you finally start to see where it's going. I'm assuming, I don't know, I guess I haven't really talked to anybody else about it. I don't really have like too many art friends. I want art friends. That would be fun.
Art making can be a very antisocial activity, especially when people are stuck inside of their homes right now. But luckily, we've recently been seeing Gabbie go out with friends, which I think is a very good thing for her to be doing right now. And art making can be therapeutic, but the way that Gabbie is sharing her art and demanding a certain reaction and interpretation is very unhealthy. As an artist, it's inevitable to have critics and people who don't like what you make. And it's okay to take the criticism personally because your art is personal. But it's also something that just needs to be accepted. And also, it's okay to be sensitive about your art, or to ask not to receive critiques on work that you simply want to just share because you're proud of it. But in that case, you need to share your work in safe spaces, among friends and family, art clubs, private online discussion groups with rules against unwanted critiques put in place, etc. But posting your work to the general public, especially on Twitter, is literally a free-for-all, and people will be mean, even if your work is outstanding. Gabbie really needs a separation of the therapeutic art that she makes for herself and for her own healing that she doesn't want to be critiqued, versus the art that she's sharing and monetizing. Gabbie, as a public figure and as a relatively internet-famous artist, she needs to find acceptance for criticism. I hope she does that for her sake and for her audience's sake. And that's my in-depth analysis of Gabbie Hanna as an artist. She's a good illustrator, and she's an excellent painter. She's very creative, and I visually love her recent work especially, but she's bad at being an artist, especially an artist with influence over a large portion of the internet. And with that, here is some of the artwork that my viewers made during my previous videos, and I would love for you to share yours with me on Twitter or Instagram, both linked in my description. I also have a Patreon where I send my supporters stickers and handwritten thank you cards in the mail. And I also offer downloadable coloring pages that could be fun for everybody to work on while we listen to these videos if you feel like it. Links to everything, as always, will be in the description. I hope you enjoyed hanging out and maybe making some art with me. But if you're not an artist, I hope you were able to hang out and enjoy the video anyway. So thank you so much for watching and stay creative. See you next time.